Well, hi, everybody. This is Dr. Jonathan Kuttner. I'm going to talk about shoulder impingement. And firstly, I'm going to describe how it works. And, and then I'm going to show you how you can make it better. And I have injured my left shoulder and have suffered from the most excruciating pain from my shoulder. And what I'm going to show you is, in fact, in the early hours of the morning, my discovery as to how best you can move your shoulder when it is impinging. And it's, I can tell you now, sheer gold. My shoulder's a lot better now. So let's first talk about what impingement means. It's a term that's used a lot. A lot of times, people who use it or who describe it don't really understand what it's about. So I'm going to explain that. Your shoulder is a remarkable thing, and it's a unique joint. What you have is a shoulder blade and a head of the humerus. The shoulder blade sits over the back, sits over your back, glides up and down. It's held there only by muscles. So the shoulder blade, which is the base of the shoulder, has to be balanced and held by muscles on your back. Then what you have is a joint. It's a tiny little joint just in here. And the bit that matters, the important part, is here, which sits. It's not a joint, but it's a pseudo joint. It's something that behaves as a joint without the beautiful glidey cartilage that you have on both sides of the joint. This doesn't have it. This is a space, and this bone is called the acromion, and this is the subacromial space. And this space has a sac, a bursa that goes in, and the sac helps whatever's going to happen in here glide. Okay. It also has two really, really important muscles that are going to make that shoulder work. So, and there's one other factor, that is that you can see a lovely round head here. That is the head that glides around. And at the end of it, there's a bump. It's a big bump. And this bump is where muscles attach to pull the shoulder up. And this bump is, in fact, this bump and the acromion, which is like a shelf, are the key to what happens with impingement. So what you have is two muscles. There's one muscle, and I'm showing you here. This is the back, and that's the spine of the scapula. And there's a muscle that arises from the spine of the scapula, and it runs through a space. And as you see with my finger, it attaches to that bump. My finger can't quite reach. So this muscle runs through, attaching to the bump, and it is called the supraspinatus muscle. And if this muscle contracts, so here's my finger coming through, if it contracts, it pulls the head in and down. Once the head is pulled in and down, then the second muscle, which is a big, strong muscle, is called the deltoid, which is big and broad, and it comes across and attaches onto the big bone lower down. And so this muscle, once the head is pulled in, this muscle lifts the arm up, and you have all the space in the world for that bump to slide under the bone. So the supraspinatus muscle has to contract first, pull the head down, and then when the deltoid works, there is free movement of the shoulder. And you don't get impingement. However, if the supraspinatus is damaged, or if the supraspinatus has just gone to sleep, it's just grumpy for some reason, then what happens is, as the deltoid will be the first one to contract. So the deltoid, because it's this big muscle running like this, its first movement is to pull the shoulder up. The head glides up. Then it starts to turn, and now it digs in. And that is called impingement. So if the two muscles aren't dancing together correctly, supraspinatus first, deltoid second, then what will happen is the head glides up and it digs in. And when it digs in, what you feel is not a pain right up here, but you feel a pain in your arm and you feel it down here. So people who impinge go, ow, like this. And the problem is, as you lift your arm up and to get that head gliding underneath, as you lift it up, as it digs in, you get this awful pain. Also, once the head is slid right under, then it's comfortable again, but as you come back, oh, it hurts. So you have these two pains. The first is as you start to lift, not sore. Ah, my God, that's sore, that's sore, that's sore, that's sore. Oh, that's feeling a bit better. Then you kind of lean it up here. Then as you come down, it goes grind, grind, grind again. And then you feel it, and then the pain goes. Doesn't hurt you when your hand is low down. Okay, so that's impingement. And the question is, how can you help impingement? Well, what you need to do is a wonderful mind-body practice. And so you have to imagine. You can't say, oh, I want the supraspinatus to contract and then I want to, that doesn't work. So you need to, in your mind, understand that the first movement that you make when you lift your arm is going to be downwards. And that downwards is to create all the space so that you can move your arm. Now, this strangely is counterintuitive because the moment it hurts, then the first movement everybody makes, because you think, oh my God, it's going to hurt and I'm going to have to lift my arm up, is that we pull the shoulder up. So as you do, you make the first movement, you lift up, and it's going to, because somehow it's going to help you. The truth is, as you lift your shoulder up, you actually activate this muscle and it digs in. So your first movement needs to be a dropping of your shoulder. So you put your hand on your shoulder, and as you go to make the movement, you relax, you breathe out, and you imagine that the head is dropping down to create space, and you put your hand on here to make sure that that first movement is a downward relaxing movement. As you do that downward relaxing movement, so what happens is the head drops and then you create space. Okay, so this is well recognized as a way to help you make your first movement, just relaxing here, breathing out, letting your shoulder go and allowing things to drop. And in your mind, you make that movement. And you can see now that I'm not going ouch, 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 which I used to. Okay, now I'm going to add my beautiful 2 o'clock in the morning movement, which I have to tell you is stunning. It really it's the thing that made the most difference. So I'm sliding back. So now what you do is this. You put your hand on your chest. So now I'm going to stand up and move back. So let's get the angle right. There you are. You can see me. Okay. Now my arm is down. My hand is on my chest here. And the first movement I make is a movement with the tips of my finger. I do this. Now, what I found is by doing this, I relax all the muscles here. I just relax them down. You can't, this movement here, so I'm just gliding my arm up using the first movement, this touching my chest. in the beginning, I can use more force with my hand. And if I let my hand's like helping me. But after a while, there's a relaxing here. You make that movement. Now, the shoulder is relaxing and my elbow is just gliding. So I'm doing this movement. If I turn to the side, I'm skimming my elbow along my chest and my wrist is relaxing. And now I turn my head and I just slide I slide my hand along the side of my head, bring it up, and it sits over there. So this was 2 a.m. I found, oh my God, I can do this without being in agony. So there I am. So this movement just here, that's completely relaxed. Everything's relaxed. Turn my head. I'm just gliding, wiping the side of my face. My shoulder is just following. And then I get to here. And to get back, I do exactly the same movement until I come back here. Okay, so that is a divine movement if you have your shoulder impinging. Once you can do this movement, then you can do the next step, which is to explore as you move. So if I come back again, so you can lift like this, then you start to lift like this, then you come further out and you lift like that, and you come further out and you lift like that. All the time, just allowing the first movement to come from your hand, and therefore you're not going to pull up. The moment you pull up like this, you're lost and your pain will return. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. I can tell you from personal experience that if you have a shoulder that's impinging, if you follow these rules, it will make all the difference in the world. And you start off very little, and gradually, you can increase the area here that the shoulder will work so that it won't impinge. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for listening. If you liked this, and as I say, from personal experience, I know that this will really work for those of you who have a shoulder that's impinging. Please push the button below to subscribe, and then you can get all new recordings that I do, because I do these quite regularly. Thank you all very much. Goodbye.